Welcome back to the Laurence McKenna channel. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about Jurgen Klopp and the possibility of him staying another 4 years beyond 2024 and doing something that no other modern Liverpool manager has done. Stayed for at least what you would consider to be 3 tenures. Because, well, let's just see what the facts are at the moment. His representative was at Anfield. By the way, I am on a building site, if anyone wondered. He was at Anfield for the Villarreal game alongside the kind of people who would renegotiate a contract at Liverpool. And going from some of the news that's in the Times and the Telegraph today, there are apparently another 4 years on the table beyond 2024 for Jurgen to do his thing and continue the good work that he's already done at Liverpool. Of course, there are many different facets to this, and there is no contract that's been signed yet, but it's worth discussing the possibility and the excitement around what might happen and the reasons why. Of course, Jurgen is the greatest manager of Liverpool's modern age, and Liverpool have had some good managers. Brendan Rodgers took Liverpool very close to the title. Rafa Benitez did the same, but he also got Liverpool a Champions League. Gerard Houllier is very fondly remembered, but none of these people quite have the stature of Jurgen Klopp, because Jurgen bought the Premier League. He bought something that Liverpool have been chasing for 30 years, and he also bought the Champions League again. So whilst we fondly remember, Rafa Benitez, he didn't do it on the scale or the front that Jurgen has. And it's been down to this rivalry between Liverpool and City that has taken both of these teams to the next level, that we've seen the very best come out of not only Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool, but also Man City. I personally believe that these two teams still do push each other to the very maximum. We've seen them exchanging position at the top of the table, point for point, over the last few years. And yet, we've also seen both those managers thrive under what you can only describe as the most intensive pressures. Because whilst Jurgen Klopp has had some investment, City have had more. Whilst Liverpool have had some success, City have had more. And normally in any other era, you'd say that maybe people will be slightly dissatisfied by this, maybe people will be frustrated. But in many ways, the FSG model has thrived under Jurgen Klopp because he's been able to get the most out of so many of these players. And I get it. There is this element of we could have invested more in this time, but if you do want to do a model which is financially sufficient in its own way and sustainable, then the best way to do it is under Jurgen Klopp, someone who's able to squeeze the best performances out of players very consistently. When he first came in at the club, he even got the best performances out of people who previously had not performed to their best. And even then, when those players are moving on, some of them then dropped off again, showing that I think Jurgen Klopp was a huge element in getting the best out of some of these guys and maybe getting them the move to the club that ultimately they wanted to be at, say Barcelona for Coutinho, Juve for Emre Can, or wherever you want him to be now. And of course, there are other aspects to that as well. When you then bring new players in, you see these guys being bedded in. There is the element of, well, we didn't think that Jurgen would be able to transition in this way. We thought that it would be this team, this one hit and done. We thought that it would be, well, when Mo Salah, Mane and Firmino decide to move on, maybe Jurgen will move on as well and the band will be disbanded. But then Luis Diaz came in January and we saw that this transition was possible. We also saw, by the way, that other people were transitioned into the team. Ibrahima Konate, obviously against Villarreal, putting in another fine performance and bossing that back line again with Virgil van Dijk. He is being almost personally trained by Virgil van Dijk at this point. And so there is something to be said for another generation bedding in at Liverpool. Trent Alexander-Arnold is still extremely young. It's pretty unbelievable what's going on there. And he is clearly a future Liverpool captain. We will also see, obviously, a couple of the older guys transitioning out of the side, but Liverpool have also been offering contracts to the likes of Alisson, Virgil van Dijk, Fabinho. The list continues. There is possibly negotiations with Mo Salah going on at the moment. And so we are seeing this Liverpool team transition under Jurgen Klopp. And at the time, when it first started, we thought this might be a transition into a new era with another manager. Maybe he was teeing things up for someone else. But just didn't feel quite like that was the case. It felt like that here and now was the moment. We'd added to this team, we tooled up in the correct way, and we were able to challenge City. And let's be honest, after last season, a lot of people thought that maybe it was the end of the Jurgen Klopp era outside the club. A couple of people inside still had the faith, and that was a majority of us Liverpool fans. But some people thought maybe it's coming to an end. Maybe that tenure is done, and maybe in a similar way to what we saw at Borussia Dortmund, Jurgen now needs to move on. Little did people know that tactically they were just trying to retool, trying to work up something new, and we've seen him take this side now to another level. And when I say another level, I don't even mean in terms of intensity. This team was already intense. I mean in terms of tactics. They can control a game. They can boss the midfield. They can boss the defence. They can boss that front line as well. They have a goalkeeper who's able to be a leader from the back and self-sufficient in his own way. There are a number of different ways this team's improved, but they've also managed to bed in some impressive players in there as well. You know, the likes of Diaz just coming in and hitting the ground running. Obviously, Thiago's first season was tricky due to injury, but at the end of the day, I still think there was something impressive about the way that he's kicked on this season, and I still think the underlying metrics there that show him to be a great player are also partly down to the fact that Jurgen Klopp has bedded him in so well, on top of him being a veteran player. And you know what? A lot of people thought maybe he was stuck in his ways when he first came to the team. They thought, can he really adapt? Is he going to be able to play in the way that Jurgen Klopp wants him to? Well, we don't really know at this point. Oh, no, sorry, we do. He's actually become one of the best midfielders in the world and enabled Liverpool's midfield to move on to a whole new level, alongside Fabinho and Henderson. And you know what? I understand why there would have been doubts around Jurgen, because a lot of people thought that he was a merchant of these things that people had come to know him for. You know, the passion idea, the intensity idea, all these things that people reduce Jurgen Klopp down to. He's blown each and every one of those assumptions away about him, and he's completely rebuilt a Liverpool side into something which even Liverpool fans didn't expect. We didn't know that it could get this good. We thought it had peaked with the intensity. We thought that it had peaked in a time when maybe we had been taught by previous eras to just accept what it was that we wanted. We didn't know what level 2 dreamed to. And so then you get to this side with FSG. And maybe it shows the intent here from FSG, what they want to do moving forward. They want to retool and rebuild this side. Luis Diaz is part of the beginning of that. Konate is also part of the beginning of that. And seeing where, you know, Trent is playing in this team, how progressive he can be. If we see the likes of Mo Salah getting another contract, there'll be something impressive there. Again, sorry about those noises. But we are seeing the intent set out by FSG, basically. The idea that they can go into another era with Jurgen Klopp, have another time around, maybe even 2 more times around. And they're mapping out where this Liverpool team go from here. Because a lot of people thought, well, they're only here to, you know, flip a team and sell them. But that's clearly not been the case. Whilst they are clearly running within their own financial constraints, and a lot of people are sending me the links of, you know, John Henry's buying a $25 million mansion here, here and here. If Jurgen Klopp or Mo Salah doesn't get their new contract, then that's all down to him. This guy's part of a massive business here. It's not just down to John Henry at this point. And I think maybe the congratulations are obviously due to him, but also the fact that they've listened to the side now and they're moving into a new era at Liverpool. They're trying to make them a more progressive team. They're trying to make them a more progressive institute. They're trying to lead not only off the field, but also on the field as well, in terms of tactics, in terms of analytics, in terms of all these things. They're retooling now because Michael Edwards has moved on. And I keep using that word because it isn't just about revolution or, you know, completely changing things, swapping all these things out. It's about making these small tweaks and having people in the team who are familiar. A lot of people thought that maybe Pep Lingers would have taken over from Jurgen Klopp because he was one of Jurgen Klopp's coaches, and he was clearly tactically a huge part of what Liverpool were doing moving forward. And if he is remaining in Klopp's team, fantastic. We may also see Pep move on at some point though, because he may want to be his own man, he may want to be his own manager. But again, there is a statement of intent from FSG here. They will reinvest bigger money into Jurgen Klopp, and by the looks of it, they're also looking at a young French midfielder, possibly a young English midfielder, people who can come in and offer more options within that midfield, in a midfield that already has an incredible amount of options. But they always want to be moving forward. They always want to be looking at where Liverpool are going rather than just sticking in the moment. And that's what's led Liverpool possibly to the most evolutions in one season, apart from the first season when obviously Liverpool had to evolve very quickly under Jurgen, that we've seen in one season. This is version 4.5.6.0 here from Jurgen. At the start of the season, they weren't playing this kind of football, but we could see the blueprints for where they are now. We could see the hope that Liverpool had. And I don't think anyone would have said that they would be the team that would compete longest for a quadruple, even if some of those things are out of Liverpool's hands. And they have been, by the way, the team that have competed longest. And now I come on to why they've competed the longest. They've been driven by another side in the Premier League as well, and these sides have gone punch for punch, back and forth. Man City are likely going to sign, and I mean very likely going to sign Erling Haaland. They will be retooling this summer in the same way as Liverpool will look to do, but in different departments. That guy that they were missing, that guy that they needed, that striker that they always maligned not having in the moments when they hadn't quite gotten over that hump or quite gotten over the hill, they will now have. And this team will retool towards the end of Pep Guardiola's contract. Maybe Pep signs a new one, but maybe Liverpool are also looking at capitalising on an unsure era for Man City. Maybe they're also looking at keeping themselves ahead of the likes of Newcastle, Manchester United, Arsenal, Spurs, Chelsea. Because they realise that if you drop out of that top four, if you drop out of the Champions League, especially in the new iteration, especially in the way it's going to be, it's not good for business, and it's certainly not good for what's going on at Liverpool right now. They can't afford to do that, especially with the wage bill that these guys have, especially with a lot of the other financial models they'll be looking to run to bring players in, to swap a couple of players out. They've run things pretty well from here. Not least, did you see that in comparison to the likes of Everton? It's not just about spending money, it's about spending it effectively. But part of that effective spending at Liverpool is down to Jurgen Klopp. He's squeezing the most out of these players. And of course, there were always doubts over whether Jurgen would last this long. You know, he originally said, if I don't win this title within 5 years, you know, I'll consider myself a failure. But a lot of people thought that was him kind of laying out his tenure. But it turns out it was just him laying out where the start of his tenure was, where the start of him being able to get into his stride was. But still then, there were people who reduced him down to something less than that. And there were also people, by the way, who said that he would go out in a similar way to the Dortmund way. But now we see the grass is not always greener for Dortmund. The grass is not always greener when Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp or whoever it is moves on from your club. And so I think City and Liverpool and City are both conscious of that, but not least Liverpool, who know the maximising that Jurgen Klopp has done with this side. So part of what FSG do and part of this whole model relies on a manager that can get the best out of the players, that can be the human motivating factor, and they do the research into that. This Liverpool team look into the character of the players. You can clearly tell when you spend time with the players, a lot of these guys have similar characteristics which complement each other. There are mild-mannered guys on the side. There are clearly a lot of leaders within the team. There are people who have been profiled and then statusized to within an inch of their transfer lives to work out whether these are the people that Liverpool want. And then Jurgen Klopp is the guy to take them to the next level. You remember at Chelsea, Mourinho used to speak about, he was taking his players as men off the pitch also to be better men on the pitch. And Frank Lampard and John Terry both were testament to that. But Jurgen Klopp is doing that in a very different kind of holistic way, if you like. And it's that holistic approach which is allowing the stats that FSG and the models that FSG are applying off the pitch to thrive at Liverpool. I, for one, welcome Jurgen Klopp signing a new contract, but I understand that it also shows there is a new era coming in, there is a new kind of spending possibly coming in at Liverpool, and you'd hope that Liverpool will reinvest some of this money they're earning off the pitch back into the likes of Pep Lingers, the likes of Jurgen Klopp, the likes of maybe even Mo Salah at some point. Of course, it's also down to the fact that maybe Klopp wants to see this team into another new era, and maybe he sees there is this capitalisation they can go through in this unsure time in the Premier League. If Pep were to leave, that does leave Klopp in a fairly good position because there will be an unsure era for Man City. If Klopp were to stay, that's fantastic news for Liverpool. Not only do we keep our modern manager that we've loved for so long, we also get to think about where we're going with this side. We get to think, well, we can attract people into this era under Klopp. We can attract people who maybe are looking to work with Klopp before he moves on. And let's face it, this might be one of Jurgen's last times with the domestic side. It's hard to see where he sort of goes from here because it doesn't seem like maybe he suits a PSG, though maybe he could be tempted if the project is right. And frankly, I wouldn't want to see him move on and go straight into another job. And he didn't do that with Dortmund, probably showing the emotional bond and the, to be honest, emotional toll that a time like that had taken on him. But he came out of that, whatever leave it was or whatever semi-retirement that it was that he'd hit. And he hit the ground running at Liverpool. He came in and was extremely intense, extremely life-changing for a lot of people in this Liverpool side, and extremely culture-changing for the institution itself. So, will he continue that culture? And do you want him to continue, or do you want to see someone different at Liverpool? I personally would love to see Jurgen Klopp signing a new contract. I can't even believe I'm asking what you would want. But I know there are people out there who've got their own opinions. Maybe it gives Steven Gerrard a little bit longer to learn. Maybe it gives other managers a bit more time. And maybe Liverpool are even looking at the fact that they don't know who it is who would be on the horizon right now. So Jurgen Klopp is in a great negotiating position. He's got Liverpool probably at the prime of their peak and whatever you want to call it. But he's also got a fantastic repertoire of players to pick from. And that has been enabled to him by the club. If these two can continue that sweet collaboration and Liverpool can continue whatever you want to call this era, I more than welcome Jurgen Klopp staying. Let me know your opinions on how he stays, what he stays, and who he stays with in the comments below. I'll see you guys later. Enjoy your day. Jurgen Klopp, put that pen to paper. You will make me and so many other Liverpool fans very happy people. See you later.